Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into some really fascinating ancient texts, all kind of orbiting this famous story about a big reversal. We're asking, what's true righteousness really look like? And how does deep humility connect with divine justice? We want to get past the superficial stuff.
Yeah. Beyond just the actions, the sort of checklist of things you do,
Yeah.
we're digging into the why,
Yeah.
the state of the heart. Our goal really is to maybe find that aha moment about sincerity versus just, performance, what sacrifice, what prayer is actually acceptable.
And the sources we've got today are fantastic for painting this picture. We're starting with Luke 18, that key story, the Pharisee and the tax collector. Then we'll look at some Psalms for the, let's say, spiritual mechanics, and Sirach for the bigger picture on justice. And we finish up with 2 Timothy, kind of looking at enduring faith. It gives us a full spectrum, right, from inner attitude to the final outcome.
Definitely connects all the dots.
Okay, so let's unpack that main story from Luke right away, because it really does set the whole scene. Jesus apparently told this parable specifically to people convinced of their own righteousness and, crucially, despised everyone else. So right off the bat, we know it's a challenge.
Oh, absolutely. It's designed to provoke. You've got these two figures heading to the temple to pray. The Pharisee, he's like the model citizen, religiously speaking. Everyone admired that kind of person. And then the tax collector, seen as a traitor, working for Rome, probably corrupt, total opposites in the public eye.
Right. And how they act there, it mirrors their inner state, doesn't it? The Pharisee took up his position, like front and center, confident. And it says he prayed to himself. It wasn't really a dialogue with God, was it? More like a performance review he was giving himself.
Exactly. He kicks off thanking God, but it pivots immediately to his own accomplishments. I fast twice a week. I pay tithes on everything. These were things that went way beyond the basic requirements. But the real kicker, the pride, comes out when he thanks God he's not like the rest of humanity, greedy, dishonest, adulterous.
Even like this tax collector.
Ugh.
Yeah.
He uses prayer time to prop himself up by putting the other guy down, right there in the temple.
That comparison is just so telling. His whole sense of being righteous depends on someone else being, less righteous. Now, contrast that with the tax collector. Stands off at a distance, won't even look up, and he beats his breast, a really public, raw gesture of what? Grief? Self-condemnation.
Total contrast in posture, yeah. Pharisee broadcasting his success, tax collector radiating shame, like complete awareness of his failure. And his prayer, it's the polar opposite of the Pharisee speech. Just simple, raw. Oh God, be merciful to me, a sinner. That's it.
No justifications, no bargaining.
None at all. Just a plea. Utter dependence on mercy.
And then comes the twist, the part that must have just floored everyone listening. Jesus says the tax collector, the latter, went home justified, not the Pharisee. That completely flips the script on their understanding of religious success.
It totally redefines it. Justified, declared right with God, right then and there. And it wasn't based on his actions, was it? It was his attitude, his humility. And Jesus lays down the principle right after, whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and the one who humbles himself will be exalted. It's a spiritual law, basically.
Okay, so if that tax collector's simple, almost ashamed prayer was enough,
Yeah.
what was he offering? He clearly wasn't fasting or tithing like the Pharisee. What counted more?
Well, he was offering his brokenness, his recognition of need. And we see this idea spelled out really clearly in Psalm 51. The wisdom texts kind of get down to the spiritual nuts and bolts. Psalm 51 says, "The sacrifice acceptable to God is a broken spirit. A broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise."
Ah, okay. So that's the core requirement. A broken spirit, a contrite heart. That preference for brokenness over, say, the Pharisee's self-righteous spirit. It confirms that God's looking deeper, right? At the sincerity, the genuine regret. That's what contrite means, isn't it? Not just the outward show.
Exactly. That's why the Pharisee's whole performance, impressive as it was externally, just fell flat. He was, spiritually full, self-sufficient. He didn't seem to need anything from God except maybe applause. The tax collector, on the other hand, knew he had nothing. He was empty, and that emptiness made space for mercy.
So humility is like the doorway to grace.
And pride is the door slammed shut. It stops us even seeing we need grace.
Okay, that makes sense on an individual level, but how does this connect to the bigger picture of divine justice? Does God just automatically take the side of anyone who seems lowly or oppressed?
That's a great question, and it leads us right into Sirach chapter 35. This text adds another layer. It's not just about individual feelings, it's about how justice actually functions. Sirach says the Lord is a God of justice, and importantly, knows no favorites. So impartiality is the starting point. God isn't just biased towards the underdog for its own sake.
Right, impartiality first. But then, almost in the next breath, Sirach says, "Yet he hears the cry of the oppressed." So even though God isn't partial, there's this intense focus on suffering.
Exactly. Justice isn't blind in the sense of being unaware. It's acutely aware of vulnerability. Sirach highlights the orphan and the widow, classic examples of the powerless. God isn't deaf to the wail of the orphan, nor to the widow when she pours out her complaint. It suggests a protective element built into divine justice.
And the prayer itself, the prayer of the lowly, like the tax collector's quiet words, is Sirach gives it this incredible power. It says it pierces the clouds. It's described almost like a missile. It does not rest till it reaches its goal, won't stop till the Most High responds, judges justly, and affirms the right.
Wow. Yeah. It's like the cry of the oppressed actually compels a just response. It activates divine justice. And that fits perfectly with Psalm 34, doesn't it? The key line there, the Lord hears the cry of the poor.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes on. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those crushed in spirit. There it is again, the broken heart, the crushed spirit, the exact state of the tax collector.
So being crushed in spirit isn't something to hide or be ashamed of necessarily.
Yeah.
In this framework, it's actually the thing that connects you to God's saving justice.
It seems to be the precondition for being heard, for activating that divine rescue. The lowliness itself enables justice.
Okay, so if that's the principle, humility opens the door. God hears the cry of the brokenhearted. But let's look at the end game. What happens when someone in that state endures?
Right, the application. And for that, 2 Timothy is really insightful. Paul is looking back at his life right near the end.
Yeah, he uses that classic metaphor of an athlete or maybe sacrifice. He says he's already being poured out like a libation. His departure time is near. It feels very final, very vulnerable.
And notice his final assessment. It echoes the tax collector in a way. He doesn't list his successes like the Pharisee did. He focuses on internal faithfulness. I've competed well. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Mm-hmm. It's about endurance, about sticking with it, not about, public accolades.
And the reward. It's guaranteed by the just judge. He says, the crown of righteousness awaits me, awarded by the Lord, the just judge. So the judge confirms the righteousness that came through humble persistence, not boasting.
And the context Paul gives makes this even stronger. He says point blank, "At my first defense, no one appeared on my behalf, but everyone deserted me."
Wow, so he was totally alone, abandoned. That's the ultimate low point, isn't it? It mirrors the tax collector standing isolated in the temple.
Exactly. Utter vulnerability. But that desertion, that humiliation, it didn't break his faith. Instead, it proved God's reliability. He says, "The Lord stood by me and gave me strength. Even when everyone else left, God remained."
And his confidence is that the Lord will rescue him, will bring him safely to the heavenly kingdom. It's a rescue operation based on God's faithfulness, triggered by Paul's faithful endurance in his lowliness.
Right. The pattern holds all the way through.
So let's try and wrap this up for you listening. Looking back across these texts, there's this really clear thread, isn't there? The humble, contrite heart, like the tax collectors, that's the acceptable sacrifice we saw in Psalm 51.
Mm-hmm.
And that heart, that cry from a lowly place, is immediately heard by the God of justice, the one who defends the oppressed, which we saw in Sirach and Psalm 34.
Right.
And if you stick with that faith, enduring through hardship like Paul in 2 Timothy, the ultimate reward comes from the just judge. It all connects.
Yeah, the whole process of justification, of being made right, seems way more about your internal posture, your attitude before God, than about ticking off external achievements. It suggests we're measured less by the list of things we've done, the Pharisees' list, and more by how deeply we get our own need for mercy and how faithfully we live in that reality.
Okay, so here's maybe a final thought for you to chew on. If these sources are right, if the prayers that really count, the ones that pierce the clouds, aren't the loudest or most boastful, but the quiet, maybe even desperate prayers of the lowly, what does that mean for us? Are there humble requests, maybe in our own lives or in the lives of people around us, that are getting drowned out?
Yeah, drowned out by all the noise of achievement and self-confidence we value so much.
What unspoken needs might be waiting to pierce the clouds if we just got quiet enough to hear them, or humble enough to voice them ourselves? Something to think about.